Now that we've finished upscaling all of our images to a higher resolution and making them more clear with Gigapixel AI, now I'm going to begin editing in Premiere Pro. So I'm just going to paste this Premiere Pro project file that I just created prior to this project. And it just has a basic template in there for zooming into all of our images. And I'm going to move these into the original images folder. And I just like to set up the structure folder, basically all the folders first for the Premiere Pro project. I don't think we have any audio or videos, but I always like to have an images folder, an audio folder, a video folder, and then another folder for when we go and output or export the final video. So let's open this up. None of the images in the existing project should link because I moved. Maybe it will, but so it did. Cool. So you can see how it's just zooming in, zooming out. So first thing, I'm just going to clear up this project a little bit, but I want to go and open up this main sub just to make sure that the images are still there. I don't want to delete any of the templates. We don't need the audio for now. So here we just have our images and you can see how they're just zooming in. I'm going to delete all of the images. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure didn't happen. I want to keep at least one or two of them. So let me just delete these. All we need is one image so we can go to the effect controls and then basically copy this stuff and paste it on our images. So first, let's go and import the images. Let's just organize this a bit. We can call this images. Within the images folder, let's create 6 additional folders. These are our image sets. And then within the first folder, let's go and import all the images in folder 1. And now let's go back up a level. Click the second image folder and we'll import all of the images in folder 2. And we'll do the same thing for the other folders. Okay, so now what we need is one video track per image. I just want to take a look. What is this? It looks like it's renamed different. Okay, that's good. So I hope that it kept them in the same order. So it looks like that they ordered them based on the file name. What we want to do is sort them based on the date modified. Let's take a look at the gigapixel folder. I'm not sure that it modified the original one, moved along. It doesn't look like it matches up anymore. So what I'm going to do is rename all of the images within this folder. Let's open up ChatGPT and I'm just going to say, write a Python script that loops through all .png files within the folder and renames them to a number, starting with 001, etc. Sort by date modified before renaming. Add .png extension to end. Final file name should be 001. So I'm going to copy that. We'll open up Visual Studio Code again and go to New File. And first, in case it messes up, I'm just going to make a complete backup of the entire folder. Now let's go in, run the Python script, and let's take a look to see if it renamed the images correctly. And now I'm going to sort it by the name. We'll open this one. We'll do open with, let's see, regular Windows photos. Okay, so I'm just making sure that they are in sequential order. I think they're good. No, they're good. Okay, so now let's do it for the other folders, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Let's quickly check all of the other images, sort by name. Looks good. So we can just tell by looking at the thumbnails, they all seem good. Okay, so now let's go and run these through Topaz Gigapixel AI. And I'm just going to move that to the backups. Let's go to our images folder and let's create another folder called 6x. And within this folder, we're going to create 6 different folders where we're going to save the upscaled images to. We'll open up all of the images within folder 1. We're going to choose 6x and art and CG, and then click on save 49 images. We're going to keep the image to PNG to preserve the source format and keep the file name to auto, a custom directory, and we want to change the directory. Let's go and save these upscaled images to the 6x folder and in image set number 1. And we'll click on start, and then we'll wait for Gigapixel to do its thing. Okay, and then I'm going to click on remove all, click on browse images, and then we're going to go back and then open up all the images in folder 2. Click on save images, and we're going to change the output folder to folder 2 in the 6x folder, and then click on start. And now we're on to image set number 3. We'll do the same process and we'll save the files into folder number 3. And let's go on to the next folder. Halfway done. We'll open up all the images in folder 4, and then we'll change the output to the 6x folder for image set number 4. And then click start again. Okay, and now let's go to folder 5. We'll open up all the images, click save 49 images, change the file path to folder 5, same process. Okay, now let's go and convert our last folder. We'll choose folder 6. Okay, and that wraps it up. It looks like all of our images have been converted. So I'm just going to pick a random folder. We'll click on sort it by the name. And it looks like they all match up. Okay, next up, let's begin editing our images in Premiere Pro. So over here, I have a template that we can use to get started. It's the template that I used right before working on this project, just for my little test. Over here, we have 2 of the sample images from my previous project, and we could just see it zooms in, zooms out, and then we could add all the other images to the different video tracks. So what we're going to do first is go into our images folder, and let's go and create another folder for each of our 6 image sets. Folder 1. Let's get rid of this bin. Okay, so we have folder 1, folder 2, folder 3, folder 4, folder 5, and folder 6. So now we can go and import each of our image sets. If you hit Control I, that's a shortcut for importing. So these are all of the images within folder 1. Let's go and import the images for the second image set, and we'll do the same thing for the other 4. Okay, so now we have all of our images in each of the 6 folders. Now we need a video track for each image. So we have 2 video tracks now that are being taken up by these 2 images. We're going to need to go and copy the settings in a minute from these images to our images. So what we need to do, we have, let's see, 20 image tracks. We have 49 images. So if we take 49 images minus 20 image tracks, we add 2 image tracks for the samples. I think we need to go and add 31. So it's okay if you add more. If you right click in this area, you can go and click on add tracks. I'll just type in 33 just in case. And then you could type in, choose either after video 20 or before track. It doesn't matter. I'm going to select all of these just so we can use the arrow keys when we're moving left and right in the timeline. It'll save a bit of time later. There, okay. So now we have 53 different video tracks, and we have our 2 sample images with all of our settings. So you can see if we click one, and if we go to effect controls, we just want to copy this information here. Before we do that and start to add these images, I'm going to copy this composition, and let's just name that 1, and let's just duplicate this. We'll duplicate it 6 times, 1 for each of our image sets. Let's see if we could duplicate all 3 at the same time now. Okay, so we're going to open up number 1, the subsequence or composition, and we're going to paste or drag in all of our images within folder 1. We can put it at the beginning, doesn't matter. So now I just want to make sure that we're starting with the first one and ending with the last image. Perfect. So it's in sequential order already. Now this is pretty simple. All we need to do is actually, first step, we need to move these to a different layer. So I'm just going to expand this a little bit. And so I'm not going to move this over. I'm just going to drag it straight down. Pretty simple. I might actually write a Python script to automate this so I don't have to drag 250 images, but for now, it won't take too long. So we're about halfway done. Let me make the timeline a little bigger so I can actually select the images. What happened to, is there one missing? So I just undid that. Let me just redo it again. I might have drug it to the wrong place. There has to be a better way than creating all of these video tracks, maybe using adjustment layers or something. I just created this method pretty quickly in like 5 minutes. Okay, so now we have all of our images added to a separate video layer. So the next step is pretty easy. What we're going to do is just right click on one, click on speed duration, and then I'm going to click in the duration text box and just copy. And now I'm going to hit Control A to select all, and you can click on any image that you want. Right click, click on speed duration again, and now click this little button here and then paste. So what we're doing is changing the duration of each image to 6 seconds and 42 frames. This stands for 42 frames out of 60 frames because this timeline, it's a sequence of 60 frames per second. So you see how that just expanded the images a little bit? Now they overlap. So the next step, very easy. You just click this. You can hit Control C to copy or right click the image and then click on copy. And I'm going to hit Control A on my keyboard again to select all of the images. And again, you can right click on any image. And then this time we're going to paste attributes all the way at the top. And then you want to make sure that motion and opacity are checked and then click OK. What that is doing, it's copying the keyframes. Let's take a look at the 5 keyframes that are on each image. So we have one keyframe here, which is scale of 100. And then we have a second keyframe over here, which is a scale of 50. And then way off of the page, you can't see it, but if I expand this image, now it appears. So now we have this third keyframe at a scale of 35. And you can also see that this first one is linear. The second one is the continuous mode, and so is the third keyframe. So I'm just going to undo this so it shrinks the image again. And now let's take a look at the opacity. We have one keyframe over here, which is 100% opacity, and a second keyframe over here at the very end at 0% opacity. So what this is doing is the scale. Let me go to this image and let's mute these two channels. So you can see here, the scale, it's zooming out. And then the opacity from here to here, it's just fading out. So if we turn this video layer back on, and then we mute the one above, actually, let me go there. And let me expand this a little bit so you can see it. So these two videos overlap. These two images, I should say, overlap. Now, this top one, it's turned on. But if I go and mute it, you can see how it changes because that's now pulling in from the image below. And now if I go and disable the image below, you can see how it's working. So this image above, it's fading out. So the image below is slowly taking its place. So it's doing some pretty simple stuff. Let's see how it's working. It looks awesome so far. So one other thing to mention is that these keyframes, I chose this continuous mode instead of linear because it sort of smooths out the transition when it zooms in. Oh, this is actually a different one down here. This mode, it actually changes the transparency. So it keeps it closer to 100% when it's closer to this keyframe. The reason why I do that is because it keeps the image less transparent. So it's closer to 100% opacity for the clearer image that's zoomed in all the way. So you can see if we move the cursor 50%, here's the 100% opacity and here's the 0% opacity. We can see it's more than 50%. So it's at almost 60% here. All that's doing is just making the image a little more clear. So I think we're done with this. Let's check it out. We don't need these anymore. Oh, wow. So that's actually 4 minutes long. It's pretty lengthy. I'll just play a little bit of it and let's just see what it looks like. So that's just so cool. You can't even tell that it's different images. This could change so many different things. You could go and create stories with this, YouTube videos. You can create videos for clients. Oh, that looks like it messed up. Let me fix that. This was the image that I deleted. Something messed up there. So I think it's generating like another image completely there. At least this ties into there. So let's see how we can fix this. I'm glad this came up so I can show how to edit it a little bit. Ideally, I would go back into Discord and generate another image. But you know what? If we do that, then this image isn't going to match. So I guess we have to edit it now. One idea is we could just change the position. A second idea is we could change it so it just has a transition there. Let me just see if I messed up the settings. Let me just paste all these settings again just to make sure. Nope, so it's not the settings. But that matches up so closely. Okay, I'm going to change the position. Let me sync this up. I think we just need to change. That looks pretty good. That actually looks near perfect, but then it gets messed up here again. So let's change it again. Pretty close. We can always get rid of some of this or we could fade this out sooner. So here we have opacity at 100, but let's just say that we want to change the opacity. I'll just put it there. And let's drag this opacity, which is 0, a little bit over. See, I don't know if that makes it worse. Let's get the position back. So here's the position keyframe. So we want the position to be here, locked in, from here to here. But now we want the position to be locked in, like right around there. So here it's 540, and then over here, the original is 470. So let's go to the ending here. And I'm going to change this. Let's click this one and change it to 470. So the position is going to move a little bit. And let's just see if that fixed it. It did not. So let's take a look at the keyframes. What's happening? So it jumps from 470 to 470. What was it at? 540. So we want this to be, didn't lock in the position. So let's set this back to 540. So now there's a keyframe. And now let's go back over here and change this to 470. So that looks somewhat smooth. Here, it's still off. So I changed this to 470. I'll just reset that. Let's get rid of those keyframes. I think I flip-flopped them. So it's matching up to this. I think it was this that was off all the time. So this I have to change to 470. Oh, I remember what it was. This has to get changed to 470. And then let's add a keyframe there. And then let's go back here and let's set this at 540. That should do it. It's not quite matching up, so let's just drag that up. Let's zoom in a bit and let's get these two to match up. That matches up nicely. So it's 399. Let's go back to this previous keyframe and type in 399 and see if that matches up. And then we'll delete this other keyframe down here because we don't need it. And we'll zoom back out to fit. So it matches up with the first image and then it sort of moves. But then it matches up with the second image. So it works. Now this is not matching up. Okay, so we fixed it. That wasn't too bad. All we did, we added a keyframe here at 540 just to preserve what it was. So everything here and before, you could see it's 540 still. But then it slowly changes from 540 to 470. And then here, our keyframe's at 470. So everything after this point aligns with the image below. Okay, so let's continue to take a look at what we have. So with MidJourney, we can go and generate any types of images and we can go and make videos like this for clients. So if they're trying to sell something or market something, we can go and create very, very custom images and convert them to videos just as easy as this. How cool is that? It goes from a roulette table to people playing poker to aliens watching TV. And it goes into space with dinosaurs. And then it goes into space more. It goes into like some sort of frame, which transitions. Okay, then it ends. That's really cool. Okay, so now let's go and do the same thing, but to the other sequences. So I'm going to go back to our main folder, or I should say our project window. And we're done with this for now. Let's open up sequence number 2. And here we have our template again. See, this time now we already have our 50 plus tracks, so we don't have to edit them again. Now all we need to do is just drag these images into here. So we have all of our images. So let's see how quick this is. Okay, so let me drag these images to the different video tracks first. Oops, and I want to move that cursor because see how it sort of snapped? I don't want the snap feature to affect it. I want all the images to be placed exactly as they are. 2 more left. Now let's select all and right click on speed duration. And this time we'll paste it in again and click OK. So now they all expanded and we're going to go back up to the sample, click the image. I'm just going to copy this, Control C, select all, Control A, right click, paste attributes. These are already checked, so I'll click OK. And I'll delete these two, and we're done. Let's give it a quick preview. Let me speed up. So far it looks flawless. That just looks incredible. Look at that, a fantasy world that MidJourney created, and we're done. Now let's do the same thing for folder 3. We'll open up sequence number 3, go to folder 3, and we have only 50 images, so that's perfect. We have enough video tracks. This time I remembered we can move them to the different video tracks. I should really automate this now. It would be a lot quicker. That's what I do stuff for my main job. I automate stuff all day long. It's fun. Okay, now we'll go back up to the template image, right click, click on speed duration, and we'll copy that again. And we'll select all, speed duration, click this dash and paste it and click OK. Go up here and then right click, paste attributes, make sure motion and opacity are checked and click OK. And we can go and delete our template images. Let's give this a quick preview. You can hit the tilde button while hovering over this window to sort of zoom in. And I'll speed up the video. What happened there? That image looks out of place. So it's doing the same thing that other image did. So here the guy's up high, and now it's down below. Now it's down below even further. Let's see if we can fix this. So I'm going to select, this is the bad image. We'll select that image, and I'm just going to move over here so we can see the guy for both images, but this is selected. So now I'm going to zoom in a bit, and then I'm going to move that bottom image up so it matches up with the guy from the image above it. Looks like there's two people. Okay. But that little light ray also matches up, so it's that top one. Now I'm going to just move over here to the end and let's lock in that keyframe. And now I'm going to go to over here, but let's go to where it's like transparent a little bit and see where it doesn't sync up. So we have to make these two sync up. Okay, and that's selected. So we want to move the guy so it matches up with the image below. And I'm also trying to match up the grid as much as possible. And now I'm going to drag this position keyframe to the end. So if you just drag it as far as it can go, it automatically drags over there. Actually, I want to move here. I want to move at the beginning of this. So let's drag this keyframe over the cursor, and you can go and zoom in down here just to make sure that it's exactly on the cursor, and it is. Okay, so let's take a look at the image and let's see if that fixed the problem. Let's zoom back out to fit. Well, it's a little wobbly, but it fixed it. So it looks like the images matched up perfectly. It was just off a little bit. So I wonder if that's like some sort of MidJourney glitch that messed up with two images so far, or if I saved the wrong image, or I wonder what happened. It is in beta, so it was just released, so it's possible that it glitched out, but it's more likely that I saved the wrong image. Let's go. Oh, that was a cool transition. Looks amazing. Another mess up. What happened here? So that really looks like the same image. Now it's like shifted over. That's really strange. But this time it's only messed up for the one image. So now that we know how to fix this pretty easily, let's go and just click on the keyframe button there to create a keyframe. If we drag this over, we can see that the keyframe appeared. And now we'll move the mouse over here where you could see both images because the top one's semi-transparent. And we'll zoom in to 800 again. And this time we're going to choose the X position. And let's just drag this image over so it matches up exactly over here. And I'm going to drag this keyframe over, and it did snap in, but I'm just going to zoom in to double check. It looks good. So it's like right there. That looks really good. It fixed it. Okay, so let's go back to fit and let's just make sure that it worked. Let's see how that looks. You can hardly even tell. There's like a little wiggle there. Okay. Once we render it, it'll look even more smooth than this. It's a little choppy because I'm playing it back now in the Premiere Pro editor. Oh, another glitch. That's the fourth image. This might have also been around when the server crashed, but I don't think that's it because the images are sort of all over the place. Okay, so that transition's fine. This needs to be fixed. And so just this one transition here. And it's horizontal again. Okay, so click the keyframe, lock into that position, move over here, scale it up, move this over, and then drag this keyframe so it snaps. I'll zoom in, there. And we'll go back, zoom out to fit. That looks off. I'm going to do this again, but this time we'll move the cursor closer to the right into the ending position. And let's delete this keyframe. Let's keep that keyframe. Okay, so now we just created 2 keyframes for that. And now it just does a nice smooth transition between the two. Okay. Let's go back a little bit and have another watch. So like move left and right. That wasn't too bad though. And we're done with that. So we're halfway done. We have 3 left. Now I'm pumped up to go and see what the next 3 image sets look like. So we just finished number 3. Let's go to the 4th sequence and let's just do the same steps that we've been doing. Drag these images in all the way to the start. We'll move these images, each one to its own video timeline. And by the way, if anyone has any ideas on how to make this template better, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. I think that I'm going to post a link so you can go and download this template below. And if anyone has any ideas, then I can go and update this template for everyone to make it easier. Also, if you have any ideas about what types of images to go and create or what to go and use these images for, that would be awesome to hear. Okay, and we're done. Let's go back up and we'll get the length of the video clip again. Copy that. And we'll paste that. And now let's go copy this, select all, paste attributes, click OK, delete these 2 template images, and we'll go back up. Let's have a look. Oh, that's cool. How many months would it have took before to go and create all of this yourself without MidJourney? This tool is amazing. Oh, and it did that one perfect. Okay, let's move on to number 5. We'll open up sequence 5, open up folder 5 with all the images, drag the images to the beginning. We'll start to move the images to each video track. And let's do the same steps. Right click on the template image, go to speed duration, copy the duration, select all, right click, go to the duration, and then we'll go and paste it in. Copy this image, select all, paste attributes, click OK. And we'll delete the 2 templates. Now let's have a look. So this is the art gallery one. There's some large paintings. Oh, and then the paintings turned into a beach. I didn't even see that when we were generating the images. That took a while to turn into the sand, and then we just changed the scene a little bit. So right there. So at this point, we know how to fix these easily. It moves up so fast. Okay, so here, I'm going to move more to the end. So I'm making that little, whatever that black pendant thing is, visible in both images. And then, actually, before I do that, let me go and move up here. Let's lock in the keyframe. So we'll lock it in. Now, we'll go to the end here and then drag it like that. I should probably zoom into like I did in the past. I'm using this little red section here with the little white dot to tell. And drag this keyframe over here. There's still a little glitch. I guess we could sync it up a couple times. Let's go all the way to the end. Seems to be off like right there. So this is what we did with the previous image. I wonder why that happens. So it looks perfect. Let's zoom back out to the fit and then we could have a look. It looks like it's fixed. A little wobbly. And we're done. Now on to the very last one. We'll open up sequence number 6. Let's go to folder 6 and we'll copy all of the images from this folder and drag them all the way to the left. and we'll begin to go and move the images to their own video track. Okay, and you should know the deal by now. Right click, speed duration, copy, select all, right click, speed duration, paste, copy image, select all, right click, paste attributes, okay. Delete transition images, and let's check for glitches. Oh, that was a cool transition. Dinosaurs to cavemen. I think this last one was my favorite. Really cool. That's weird with all the clocks at the end. Wow, this one goes on forever. There's a glitch. The rest is good. So it's just this one little glitch. This image needs fixing. We'll click that, push up on the keyboard to go to the end of the clip above. We'll go to the effect controls for the clip that we want to fix. Lock in the keyframe there so the position remains. We'll go toward the end. I guess here we could sort of line up these little black sections. We'll zoom in a bit and we'll just drag this image down. And then we'll go to the beginning of the clip below and drag this keyframe over there. And it looks good. Let's have a look at it full screen. And it looks like we nailed it. So now we have all of the 6 image sequences complete. So now let's go to our main sequence. And we don't really need these anymore. Oh, that's cool how they got added in. This was from the previous project for sequence 1. We could just have a quick look at some of the transitions. It's a little laggy. Let's just drag in these 6 sequences. It doesn't really matter what the order is. Wow, so we have like about 23 minutes of zoom effects. That's like a short film. So the reason why I wanted to go and create 6 different image sets at the same time, it was basically to save time because you have to go and wait for MidJourney to render all the images or generate the images. So I was able to go and create 6 different sets in the same time that it would take to create just one set. And I had the idea where we could like zoom into one. So like here's the ending of one. Maybe we could just zoom in and transition somehow to the next. So we would need either like, I guess, black or something that we could go and zoom into, or we need some sort of way to transition. What I'm also going to do is get rid of the opacity so it doesn't fade to black. That way we could just transition them all. So let's go into each of the 6 sequences and let's just go down to the last image and we'll go to Effect Controls. And I'm just going to delete the opacity keyframe. So if we take a look at this last image, so now it doesn't disappear, it doesn't fade to black. So let's quickly do that for all 6. Okay, so now if we go back to our main sequence, and if we go to the end of each of these sequences, we can see it no longer fades to black. So it's not transparent. That means that we can apply the opacity or the transitions to these sequences here in the main sequence rather than move all of the images to another sequence. Okay, so they all look good. Now we have to go and figure out how to transition one into the other. So I was just experimenting with trying to transition from one sequence to the next, and I think that I got a pretty cool effect. Let's have a look. So what's happening is I'm using the replicate effect to replicate the image 3 times, and then we have 4 mirror effects, one for the top, the left, bottom, and the right. And you can see at our last frame, here's our main image, but because we're zooming out so much, we have a mirror effect on the top, the right, the bottom, and the left. That way it creates the edges. And if we don't have the mirror effects, this is what it would look like. So basically we're just flipping these edges. So the edges match up and they're basically flipped, they're opposite. So if you take a look at the top image, it just flipping 180 degrees. And then down here, we're using the transform effect, and the shutter angle makes it have some motion blur. It gives it a very nice look. And I also added color balance. So I added it only to 3-4 frames, but what I was trying to replicate is I wanted to go and change the first image a little bit more blue to the color of the second image. So this is what it looks like without the color balance. And here we start frame 1, 2, 3, and then we transition over here. So there's 3 frames where the original image turns blue just a little bit. And what we're also doing is we start off at the beginning of this adjustment layer at a scale of 300. And we use a scale of 300 because in the replicate effect, we're replicating the image 3 times. So a scale of 300 makes the image full size again. And let's turn off the mirror effects again so we can see what the replicate effect is doing. And we have to turn off transform. So this is what the replicate effect is doing. This is normal. Well, this is normal. This is 2. And we could increase the size to as many as we want, but we just need 3. That way we have edges on the top left, bottom, and right. So now if we go and turn the first mirror effect on, see how it's flipping? So this edge moves over here and it lines up. So basically we're creating a pattern that repeats itself. And here you can see how it flips on the bottom. Here it flips on the left. And here it flips on the top. Now to do this, you would just have to basically drag this image so it lines up with the edge of the other image, just like that. So here I moved the x-axis. For the second one, I'm going to move the y-axis. You can see how I'm just lining up the bottom of that image, just the edge of it. And we could do the same thing with the left. This image, it's a little bit hard to tell where the edge of the image lines up, but you could tell it's like right there. But if you use a different image than this, it might be a little bit easier. And then we could do the same thing for the image on the top. See how this one's a little bit easier to tell where the edge of the image falls and ends because it's a little bit lighter on this side. So we have light on this one side of the image against darkness on this side. So you just put it right there. And then to go and set up the transform. So for the transform, we would create a keyframe over here of 300, which 300 basically, it just makes the image normal size. So you can see this is 47. If we go to 100, now we have it replicated 3 times. Here's 200, so you can see like half of the other images. But if we put it back to 300, now it's 100%. And then we're going to go to the end and then change the scale to 100. And then I also I clicked on ease in on the right keyframe, and then I sort of guided this little line so it curves down like that. So that's it for the first image. For this second adjustment layer, this affects the second image, and it's very similar to the first, but some minor changes. First, I'm using the transform effect with shutter angle of 360 again, but this time I'm going to set the scale to 500, and then I'm going to go to the end of the adjustment layer and set the scale to 100. That way it zooms from 500 to 100 because we want to zoom out from here to here, and then for the second image, we want to zoom out again from here to here. So that'll provide a nice transition effect where both images zoom out. Now, because we started this image off at a scale of 500, well, it zoomed all the way into the image. So all of the sides are like way far out over here. So we don't have to apply a mirror effect or that replicate effect to these. So that's one major change that I added to this adjustment layer is not having the mirror effect and the replicate effect. And that's about it, other than I messed around with the scale a little bit and I tested it all the way from 200 to 1500, and it looked best at about 500. And I actually created the effects on this layer and on this layer on the 2 images first, and then I just copied that image, and then I went to the project view, clicked on new item, adjustment layer, and then I just dragged that adjustment layer onto here. So then I copied this image, pasted it using paste attributes on the adjustment layer, and then I just checked replicate, mirror, transform. And then what it did, it added all of those effects onto this adjustment layer clip. So you can see how I originally had the adjustments. I originally had all of these effects on this clip. I just hid them. And then I did the same thing for this image and then just pasted them onto this adjustment layer. And the reason why I used adjustment layers is because it doesn't affect the keyframes of the image. I just copied the two adjustment layers, and then you want to make sure that one is toggled off. Let's see what happens if you go and paste to layer 1. Let me zoom in on the timeline. So see how it pasted onto video layer 1, but I want to toggle this off and 2 is selected. So it's going to paste onto 2. And now we could just drag it to the center and it snaps right in. And now we could just copy and paste this transition over and over again to all of our sequences. And I believe it's rendering the color correction. So you can see how we have a nice effect here. One thing that we would have to go and change is choose to have a darker blue. So we want this image to be the same color as this almost, or at least a little bit closer. And let me actually move these keyframes over one. So it's on the last frame of this clip and not one frame after. We don't really need that much green. Let's increase the blue. Let's try to crank that up. So now it's a little bit closer to that. I guess it is kind of green. So let's increase the green. And I think what it is it's pretty bright because this image is dark and this is bright. So this might not be the best image to transition to. It's a little laggy. Still pretty good. So now let's go to the next layer. I'm going to paste, drag the adjustment layers over. So I guess now we want it a little bit brown instead of blue. Yeah, it's that color balance effect that was causing it to have to render. So the colors are pretty good as they are. Let's just see what it'll look like if we make it reddish a little bit. Maybe that's a little too much. That looks good. Okay, so now let's go and do the same thing for the other ones. I'll just turn off the color balance effect. We also don't need to use the last image. It's also possible to find another area from a previous image where it's a little bit later. Like right here, like this blue would match up perfectly to this guy over here. And over here, I'm going to get rid of the red. And I guess let's just add a little bit of blue. And maybe a very, very little bit of green. That brightens it up a little bit. We could even get creative and add other effects to it. Let's say brightness and contrast to make it a little bit closer to the color of the clouds. So it's very bright, but this scene's very dark. I don't know yet if this is going to make it look better or worse, but we'll find out in 1 second. There it is. So if we add a keyframe there, and then change this back to 0. So this is only 1/20th of a second. It's just 3 keyframes, but it just provides a slightly better transition. So you can't even see what's happening really. And if you can't notice the transition, then that's a little better. Okay, and let's go do the same thing to the next set. So this we can go and change It's going to be very green, maybe a little blue. Maybe we'll try 12 for the brightness. Okay, so it's not as saturated. It's more teal than green. So let's decrease the green a bit. That's a little closer. And it looks like that's it. So now we joined all of our image sets all together. One other thing to note is when you're working with these adjustment layers, whether you add it to an adjustment layer or just add it to the clip, you have to make sure that the transform is below the mirrors. Something else to note is when you increase the scale using the transform effect, it doesn't work if you increase the scale of the motion up here. So you need to go and use the scale down here so you get the shutter angle, the motion blur. Okay, so that wraps up this tutorial. Now we have about 23 minutes of images that zoom in. So it just zooms in for 23 minutes. Well, zooms out, zooms in. So let's do one last thing. Now we're going to select all, including the adjustment layers. And I'm going to right click and click on Make Subsequence. So now we have in this new sequence all of these images. So now I'm going to create another sequence. I'm going to right click on this new one and then click on New Sequence from Clip. So now it merged everything together. It got rid of the adjustment layers. If we want to go back in there, you just double click this sequence and then it takes us to the new sequence. Let's click back on here. So this is zooming out. I'm going to just copy and paste this. So now we have two of the sequences. And then I'm going to right click on this and click Speed Duration. And you can go and check reverse speed. So now this is going to zoom in. So we can see this first one is zooming out. We could even go to the end over here. So it's zooming out with the first one. And then we have the second sequence where the time is reversed. So now it's going to zoom in. And it looks like there's a little bit of black here. So I'm just going to go to the end of this. I was working with these adjustment layers before. We don't need them anymore. So let's get rid of these to remove the black. See, now it's telling us that's not used. Trim this first. So now they line up perfectly. Let's stick with the original zoom out. I'm going to paste that again. And this time we're going to go to speed and duration, but we're not going to check reverse speed. But let's speed this up. So this is about 23 minutes. If we want it to be about a little over 2 minutes, we would type speed of 1,000. And now if we play this back, it's going to zoom out very fast. It's a little choppy because it's rendering. Once we export, it'll be fine. You could make it a little bit longer if you want. You could change it to speed of 500, speed of 300. I kind of like speed of 300. It's going at a nice pace. And that was our first transition. One thing that might be a good idea to change is that transition. Because we increased the speed of this by 3 times, I don't think that we want to increase that transition by 3 times. So we might have to move the transitions outside of this main sequence that we just copied and pasted, or we might not want to go and add all 6 of our image sequences to this one sequence. That way, those adjustment layers, they won't increase the speed. So it just keeps going on and on forever. And we could even add images to this afterwards. We could generate more images from any of our 6 image chains within MidJourney, and then we could just add those images directly to the end of our sequences, and then everything would almost automatically update. We would just have to reposition some of those main sequences. So this just goes on and on and on forever. I'm going to put a link in the description to the rendered version of this video so we can see at the highest resolution after it's done rendering and export what it looks like. I think I'll add a couple different ways, possibly a zoom in, a zoom out, and maybe different speeds so we could see what each one looks like. Something else that you have the option of doing is you could even add different effects to this. Like there's so many different effects that you could add. But I think there's like a twirl effect. And you could just twist it just a little bit so you can see how it goes in a circle. But if it's twisted just left or right, just a very little bit, maybe even less than that. I feel like if we're zooming out, it should be twisted to the left. If we're zooming in, it should be twisted to the right. Somewhat totally changes what it looks like. Here's -14. So it adds something a little creative where it looks like the image is almost dancing. It looks like it's moving. It looks like the beach has like a hill. And if we make it like -5, you might not even be able to tell, but it adds a nice little effect. So let's go back to this other sequence. I'm going to duplicate this. So this is called main loop sub. I should organize this next. So this is 6 image sets. This is 6 image sets duplicate. This is the one I'm going to experiment with. Actually, I think this one is main old. This is 6 image sets. I think I duplicated the wrong one. Let me duplicate this one. Okay, so let's say that I want to speed this up really quick. We have our adjustment layers up here, which I'm not going to speed up, but I want to go and speed these sequences up. I only have these selected. I don't have the adjustment layer selected. Now I'm going to right click, and instead of make subsequence, we don't want to do that. We want to keep it here so the adjustment layers can sit on top of these. So we're going to speed up these image clips, let's say 1000, so we can make them zoom in really, really quick. And then we could delete the blank space. Oh, that's cool. The adjustment layers fit perfectly. They went right into place. And I actually think that I want to reverse these. So let's go to speed duration again. And this time I'm going to click on reverse speed. I want them to zoom in this time. I want to apply the twirl layer before it renders. And we're zooming in this time. So now I want it to be positive. I want it to twirl to the right. So I'll make it like 7. And then I'll just copy this, select the other 5 sequences and paste attributes. And I'm going to uncheck everything and check twirl and make sure all of this stuff is unchecked. So now all of these other ones should have the twirl effect applied. So this is a little longer than 2 minutes. Let's have a look. Actually, let me just go and export this, and then we could have a look at the final one. But again, I'll put a link below in the description to the final video on YouTube. So let's go to export. We'll choose our project folder, and here's the output folder that we created a long time ago. And let's call this zoom in 10 times speed. And I think it's, I'll have to go back and check, but I think this swirl was 7 or 10, 7 twirl. So we're exporting 1080, 60 frames per second. It's 2 minutes and 15 seconds, H264. And we'll click on export the entire sequence. So something that you might want to do before you begin generating images within MidJourney is number each of your image sets. So if you put a 1 dot and then a 2 dot or a 3 dot and so on in the beginning of each of your images, at the end, when you go and export all of your images from MidJourney's website, you'll be able to go and sort all of your images by
the number that you put above it. And the cool part is that MidJourney doesn't take the number in front of your prompt and it doesn't generate the image based on that. It knows that you're just naming the image sets. And this way you can also go and keep track of which images within MidJourney belong to which of your image sets. That way you could go and generate 100 different image sets and just name each one between 1 and 100. And you can come back to MidJourney a year from now, and then you could go and search for those images that begin with like a 17 period. Or you could just browse through your files, and if you want to go in and generate additional images based on that image set, you'll be able to pick up right where you left off. So the images that you can go and generate, you can continue the chain forever, even in the future. This is one thing that I did, which is renaming the images based on the image set number toward the end of this project. But if I started to go and do this in the beginning, it would have saved about an hour or two with having to go and rename hundreds of different images manually. Okay, so it just finished rendering. Let's go and take a look at the final product. Oh, that was awesome. And then it ends with the matrix. So it seemed to be glitching out a little bit. Let's have a look at these adjustment layers and see exactly what was going on. So what happened is because we were zooming out, we have to reverse these effects. I wonder if it's as simple as just switching these two. No, so okay. So let's just stick to zooming out and not zooming in. Okay, so we fixed it. So now it correctly zooms out. So that's it for this tutorial. If you found this video helpful and you want to go and see other cool videos like this related to creating images with MidJourney, Stable Diffusion, or even coding with Python or SQL, then be sure to click the subscribe button below. It'll really help out the channel. Thanks, guys. And be sure to check out the description below for a link to the final render version of this video. See you in the next one.
Coder Fairy.
Coder Fairy.
Coderfairy.com. Automate it with AI.